This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, joined by fellow podcaster from the two-man power trip of wrestling, and he also has many interviews on this channel. He's been hanging out with the governor himself, Jesse Ventura, all weekend.
Nice.
None other than Dr. John Poz, who just finished watching Wrestlemania Backlash, and he's going to fill you guys in on what happened.
What's up, Hannibal? How you doing? Actually, I'm surprised. It was actually a pretty good show. Going into it, it's like, there's only 6 matches. This is a lot of rematches. But I don't know. I was actually pleasantly surprised. WrestleMania Backlash from Providence, Rhode Island was actually pretty good. And the crowd was pretty hot for, the beginning and definitely for the end. They were pretty hot for the finish as well.
And I understand the big news coming out of it is Ronda Rousey, not surprisingly, since it was a submission match, is the new women's champion.
Yeah, that was actually, I kind of had no expectations or low expectations because the Mania match wasn't that good between Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. So I wasn't really expecting too much out of this match, but it was actually really good. It was more of a street fight, really. And I know in the vein of an I Quit match, of course, but there was some submissions, but it was really just a crazy street fight. They brought out the kendo sticks. Ronda Rousey ended up breaking both kendo sticks over Charlotte Flair's arms. They went all over the place. They were in the crowd. They were in the front on the ramp. I mean, they went everywhere and anywhere and just beat the hell out of each other. It was a really good physical match. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was way better than the WrestleMania match. And Rousey is the new champ. She wins. And it's funny, she puts the chair on the arm and she puts her in the armbar for the submission win. And obviously, she's an armbar expert. But to me, I always laugh at it because Rousey's armbar isn't really that good in WWE. Obviously, compared to her submission game and her in MMA when she's an armbar expert, obviously even back to her judo days, of course. But it's just funny. She hasn't mastered the armbar in the WWE terms. Like, you could still make it look good and not kill a person and break their arm. So it was a good match with a decent finish, but I just was kind of laughing because it almost looked like she didn't really have the armbar in, but then she kind of cranked back on it. It just didn't look that great as far as the actual armbar itself. But pretty good match, and I don't know, we're definitely one of the best women's matches that I've seen in a while. I thought it was excellent match. Just the only thing I just thought was funny because Rousey's armbar submission, I don't know, isn't quite as good as you would think as far as work wise, as for shoot wise, which is one of the best.
Now, for the Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins rematch, many people thought Cody was going to win because they don't feel he's going to lose until he gets a title shot. What happened?
So sometimes WWE does the 50-50 booking. So I was actually worried that Seth was going to win and that they're going to have a third match and Cody will probably win that one. But Cody Rhodes ends up winning this one as well. I don't know. The only thing I didn't like, the match is awesome. Great match. Right on par with the great match that they had at WrestleMania. So Cody's killing it so far in WWE. I think he's doing great. Obviously, Seth is a great worker in his own right, and he can always have good matches pretty much with anybody. But to me, I was like, man, I just thought the finish fell a little short because there was a roll up by Seth. He pulls on Cody's tights, and then Cody reverses it, rolls him up, and he had Seth's tights. Like, did they really need to protect Rollins there? Did they really need to kind of have Cody win kind of by cheating? I don't know. I guess they could have made it a little bit stronger. It just kind of made Cody look like he was, I guess, the smarter wrestler. But it's almost like a heel tactic that he needed to use to win. Cody is now 2-0 over Rollins, and he kept doing the world title thing, the little strap thing, the Aaron Rodgers, that he wants the title shot next. So it looks like maybe Cody versus Roman might maybe on the horizon for sure. But I just thought great match. But just, I don't know, I kind of almost same thing as the Rousey match. It was great. But the finish just was not that the finish was bad, just not what I was expecting. Maybe came up a little bit weak compared to the rest of the match. It was a great match, but I just was weird to have the babyface kind of cheating a little bit and pulling the tights. I know fair is fair and for an eye, whatever. But I just thought that, okay, did the Cody really need that? It could have been a little bit stronger of a finish. Otherwise, great match, though. I really, really enjoyed it. Cody's been great so far in WWE. I got to give him kudos.
I like hearing that he wants to bring back the Winged Eagle belt, which in my opinion is by far the best. But
yes,
who knows?
WWE's wise, yes.
Yeah, who knows if they'll dethrone Roman before his match with The Rock. But speaking of Roman, he became the undisputed champion, yet he didn't have a title defense on the first pay-per-view. Instead, it was Roman and the Usos with Paul Heyman against Drew McIntyre and RK Bro.
pretty damn good match. And it's funny because, like, you think, like, okay, it's probably going to be pretty good because all 6 of those guys are good in their own right, especially Roman. I mean, he's the best, and the Usos are great. So you're like, okay, it's going to be a great match, but how's the crowd going to be? The crowd was hot. I mean, at points in the show, the crowd was kind of dead and not really feeling it, like through the Madcap Moss match, and maybe they weren't as into it as they could have been. But for the main event, I mean, they were loving this match. I'm not really sure why Roman didn't have a title defense. It feels like they're saving Roman versus Drew for either Hell in a Cell or for one of the big stadium shows coming up. Like, they seem like they're almost saving a big match like Roman versus Drew. But, maybe you could have done Roman versus Nakamura just to have a world title match on the show. And the rumor going in was like his shoulder wasn't 100%, so maybe don't give him the full load of having, a full one-on-one world title match and be the main event, and have the Usos kind of help him out and be a 6-man and kind of just be a little bit of a less of a burden on him and his shoulder. He showed no signs of injury. He looked great. I just thought it was an awesome match. They kind of went all over the place. He did the Uranagi, aka the rock bottom, to Drew through the table to kind of lead towards the finish, where he ended up getting the blind tag into main event Jey Uso, and they hit the spear on Riddle for the win. But great match, great 6-man. Man, I just thought really above my expectations, the pay-per-view, and even that match going in, because I'm like, how good's the main event going to be? It's not a world title match. There's really no stakes, but I was really, really loving the match, and I was loving like the reactions they were giving to Randy Orton. I mean, the crowd was loving Randy Orton. They were loving Roman Reigns. Obviously, they're loving Drew. Just everything that was hitting on all cylinders in the main event. Great match, and Roman gets the win, kind of goes forward, but he didn't pin Drew. So, I mean, obviously that's going to be the storyline going forward. Roman versus Edge at SummerSlam. I don't know about that. They had the match last year at Money in the Bank, so I don't know if Edge is going to be getting another title shot anytime soon. I think it might be Roman versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, but we'll see what happens with Roman. He actually teased at a house show in New Jersey that he may be retiring soon. So I don't know if he just meant that he's leaving the business or he's leaving New Jersey and won't be coming back anytime soon. But either way, would be crazy.
Yeah, because he hasn't peaked yet, in my opinion. If he has the match with The Rock and The Rock puts him over, that will then be his biggest run, as far as I believe.
Yep. So 617 days with the title. Obviously, then you add in the WWE title too. Now he's the WWE Undisputed Universal Champion, blah, blah, blah. But still, technically world champion for 617 straight days. And they keep bringing it up on commentary. I love Michael Cole keep saying it. Bruno Sammartino, Pedro Morales, Hulk Hogan, and then Roman Reigns, and Bob Backlund, and then Roman Reigns. And those are the guys that Roman has his sights on, that he wants to kind of be like the next in line to keep toppling those guys. So if he's going to be the champ all the way until next WrestleMania for The Rock, I think that would be great. And I think Roman's awesome now, but that win with The Rock would really kind of put him over the top. And I can't see another main event that would be possible for Mania. It's got to be Rock Roman in LA.
Yeah. It's funny, every wrestling fan that I run into on the streets or in the gym seems to be a Roman Reigns fan. And it's funny because they weren't when he was a face, but now that he's a heel, it seems like he's the wrestling fans' absolute favorite these days.
Yeah, and they were talking about it. He's the number one Google trend. He's the number one YouTube guy, like for wrestling videos. And he a Google trend is for sports entertainers. I mean, he's killing everybody. I think Lesnar was second, but he was like a far second. It just seems like he's definitely by far the most popular guy. Obviously, he does the late night talk shows. I mean, he just looks like $1 million. It's funny when he had the Shield when he was a babyface. They had him in that stupid. The stupid garb, like stupid outfit, the shirt, and they had the chest protector, the vest on. And this guy looks like $1 million. Why would you ever like cover up his body? Now it seems like they're getting everything right with him, making him the heel, making him the cool heel though. Like he doesn't take shit from anybody. He's a tribal chief. He's the head of the table. He's like the Mr. Mafia. He's the crime boss. He's just hitting on all cylinders. And I think the crowd is finally starting to get into him, and they're really, really starting to get behind him. But they're also being cool at the live events. Like they're booing him when they're supposed to boo him. They're cheering the babyface when they're supposed to be cheering. They're not trying to hijack the shows like they used to. And it just seems like a great reaction to him. And he just seems like by far the number one guy. If they lost him right now, they would be totally, totally screwed. They need him. He's the key cog in the wheel. Without him on top of the pyramid, everyone else doesn't fall into place.
Yeah, and honestly, I got to just bring this up quickly. It seems like AEW losing Cody Rhodes has affected their momentum greatly, not only just in ratings, but the buzz seems to have lifted off them significantly.
Big time. Yep. I totally agree, big time. It just seems like, and they didn't use him correctly, to be honest, to me, because it's like, okay, what does Cody have that the other guys don't have? He knows where the cameras are, first of all, which is kind of funny and stupid to say, but Omega and the Bucks always never catch where the hard cam is. It's like wrestling 101. If like WWE had them there, they would put them back in NXT. And they got to learn where the cameras are and the angles. Cody can actually cut good promos, unlike the bunch of the other guys. Cody knows how to be professional. He went all out for all his matches. You could say half the crowd hated him and were booing him, but he was going all out for all his matches. He was having some of the best matches on the card, despite whoever he was wrestling. So I feel like with Cody, you had that ace, the guy who's really a top guy, who could be a top guy. He knows how to be a top guy. He knows what to do. He knows how to cut promos. He knows how to get your emotions. He knows all this stuff, and he was great. But then they lose him, and you have a feeling like, man, they really lost a giant crater. I mean, they lost a huge part of what made them like a good company, or like somewhat of a semblance of a good professional wrestling league. Because you had a guy that can cut a promo, he could have good matches. You were interested in his storyline, no matter if you didn't like him or not. You were interested in him. And they lost that. And it seems like, okay, you lose the guy that created the company. Of course, I think you're going to lose momentum. They haven't been able to pick up the pace. And whatever they're doing now, it hasn't been working. They haven't been good in weeks, really, maybe even months, you could say. Ever since he left, they've been a really poor show. And I don't think Khan expected it. I don't think AEW fans expected it, but it's been. Last week's Dynamite was the worst Dynamite of all time, probably. I know the ratings were 833, so they're down. They're not the worst ever, but they were bad. That was a horrible, horrible Dynamite. And it really went nowhere except for Wardlow and MJF, the only interesting thing on the entire show. So it just feels like the momentum is gone. Khan's writing has been, or the booking has been bad since Cody's been gone. It just, everything has been downhill. And I don't think they expected that. They thought, we'll just let Cody go. Isn't that important to us? I think they're starting to see that he was.
The big cast jobbing thing, and I don't want to get off topic, but that was just stupid.
He looks great. Body-wise, like, my God, what a freak, yeah.
And even the pin was nonchalant. And how does that help him or Impact? Why would they even allow that to happen? Like, it makes no sense.
I like the Wardlow storyline, but Cass being a part of it didn't make sense, because it's like the guy is from Impact. Does that help Impact? No, because he kind of squashed him in essence. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't help him at all. But it maybe gets him on WWE's radar, where they might saying like, wow, that's what Cass looks like now. He looks like $1 million. Maybe that was his goal, but obviously not to help Impact. But if somebody from WWE was watching, they'd be like, holy shit, he looks like, he looks better than ever. Maybe we'll see how he's doing. Maybe we'll check in on him and bring him back.
It helps Wardlow for sure. I understand AEW did it, but like, I wouldn't have agreed to it personally if I was in Big Cass's shoes. But let's talk about Edge, who someone brought up. Fought a guy that I once pinned twice in one night, AJ Styles.
That was a pretty good match. It wasn't great or anything. It was probably maybe equal to the WrestleMania match. I liked it. I know I'm a huge AJ fan, huge AJ mark. I've always liked him. Edge, I think, since his been returned, and I've seen people online like, he hasn't been that good since return. I think he's been great. This might be his best in-ring job that he's done in his whole career. He's like, really, the psychology is there. Everything is there, like how on point he's been with his promos. I feel like this might be the best Edge has been. I know he had a Hall of Fame career. He's a former world champion, but this seems like he really has like refocused, retooled this new character. I'm kind of getting into it a little bit. I like how they do the different lights, and he's got the new theme, and the way he acts. He even walks a little bit differently. He cuts his promos kind of more demonically. I kind of know what they're going for, almost like Undertaker corporate ministry kind of thing here, or even like a House of Black kind of thing with how like the lights go out and you get Damian Priest with them. So it's just an interesting way to kind of make Edge into a kind of like a mentor role. So now he's the mentor of Damian Priest, and Rhea Ripley cheated in the match to help Edge win. So now she is a part of Judgment Day with Edge and Damian Priest. Obviously, AJ gets another loss. He's looking for revenge. Finn Balor interfered in the match as well on AJ's behalf. So it looks like Finn and AJ will be feuding with them going forward, but they might need a woman in their corner to help counteract Rhea Ripley. I guess if you're goth, you're going to be paired with Edge for whatever reason. Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, maybe even Tommaso Ciampa is a rumor that he's going to join the group with Edge as well. But it was a pretty good match. I was pretty damn entertained by Edge and AJ Styles. He won via pass out, really. He had him in the Crippler crossface, and then he put him in the rear naked choke while in there, and Edge passed out. I mean, AJ Styles passed out, but really it was set up from Rhea Ripley. Cheated. She came out in the hood, then she took the hood off and revealed it was her. She got new black hair, too.
And then, of course, Omos versus Bobby Lashley, and I may have pronounced Omos' name wrong.
Omos. You know what? I know the Nigerian giant, they call him now. He's obviously not a great worker, but he's huge. What is he? 7'4", 350 pounds or 400 pounds, whatever. He's a monster. I know WWE loves the freak shows. They love guys like that. And Lashley showed a lot of ability to be able to carry a guy like that, who's obviously very, very, very green to the business. He's never really going to be excellent or have good matches. So it's going to be up to the guy working with him, try to carry him as much as he can. And Lashley literally physically carried him and threw him down with a pretty good spine buster, too, to just show you how strong Bobby Lashley is. But I felt like this was better than their Mania match. Mania match was, came up a bit short. This was a lot better. Still not great, though. MVP cheats. Omos hits his tree fall slam for the finish, and he got the win. Much needed victory for Omos. I feel like if he would have lost, I think that was the end of him. But once you put him in with MVP, you got to keep him strong, because it seems like, okay, we're going in a direction here. We gave him MVP. He turned on Lashley. Let's keep him going. Bobby Lashley, if you will. If you think about just where they're going with Lashley, it doesn't hurt him to lose here. Plus MVP cheated. I think it was okay, and obviously they're going to go forward. They're going to have another match, and Lashley will probably get the win, and maybe down the road, Lashley versus Roman Reigns might be the big match. They do have 3 big stadium shows coming up, so you figure you need 3 big Roman Reigns matches for the shows. You figure Drew, Lashley, and Cody. That's my guess. I'm not sure, but that's going to be possibly a guess for those 3 big stadium shows they got coming up. SummerSlam, the one in Cardiff, I think it's the Clash
at the Castle,
yeah, Clash of the Castle, and then Money in the Bank. So, I mean, I think Roman Reigns is going to have 3 big opponents. I guess that could be it. But Lashley here loses to Omos, setting up the rematch, and Lashley will overcome the odds. He'll take out MVP, and he'll probably beat Omos and head into a match with Roman Reigns down the road.
Alan X wants to know what happened to the women's tag team championships.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think they were saying that it was supposed to be Natalya and Baszler versus Sasha and Naomi, and obviously it never happened. I saw Sasha Banks at the Fenway Park at the Red Sox game, so obviously she's in town. Providence isn't that far away from Fenway Park, so not sure what happened. They didn't really explain it or go into any detail, but they kept it to the 6 matches that they had, and that was it. I think that what ended up happening was, by not having that, you had Cody and Seth getting longer time, which was great because that was a great match. You had the main event go a little bit longer, which was great. And then you had Charlotte and Ronda Rousey got extra time for their match, which made it even better and made it great. So I don't know. I think it was probably a good thing they cut that match, because you don't really want to cut those 3 big matches for the show because they were all great.
Speaking of Charlotte versus Ronda, I'm just reading this tweet from Ric Flair. Whoa. Who says this was the best performance by 2 women's performers in the history of pro wrestling. What do you think about that?
Wow, high praise from the Nature Boy, but of course he's going to say that because Charlotte is his daughter. It was really good. I don't know about greatest or anything like that. I'm not really a big fan of women's wrestling in general. I mean, I don't have anything against it, but I'm just not like huge into it. Some of the matches obviously are great. Felt like last year Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair had a great match at WrestleMania. There's been some other good ones. Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair this year at WrestleMania. That match probably ranks right up there with them. I don't really know what to say about greatest or not, and obviously Flair is probably a little biased there. Pretty damn good though. I'll give Flair an A for effort on that one, I guess. But I don't know about greatest of all time, but it was very good. It was good.
Piper's jumping in to say hello to you as we Piper. Go to the final match. I think that to talk about is the Happy Corbin against. I forget the guy's name.
Madcap Moss.
Yes. How was that?
That was okay for what it was. I mean, I know Corbin is good in spurts, and obviously Moss is very green. He's pretty young in the business. It was, I guess it was okay. The crowd really wasn't feeling it. I really wasn't feeling it. It just is what it is. It felt like a time crunch there. It just felt like it was filler. Like to get from one match to another, just felt like filler, kind of just a waste of time. Wasn't bad necessarily, wasn't great either. Madcap Moss got the win with the sunset flip, the very rare finish there, because when do you see a sunset flip getting the win? But Madcap Moss did it there, and obviously Happy Corbin was a little pissed at the end. There's just 2 losses in a row after not losing for I think 8 months. So not looking good there for Happy Corbin, but not a great match. It was okay, I guess.
I always think when I hear a sunset flip back to that Pro Wrestling Exposed documentary back in the 90s when they tried to expose pro wrestling and they called it the ever popular sunset flip, where that's never been a popular move ever.
No.
Well,
especially not for a finish.
No. Yeah. Well, at least it's got to happen sometime, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, what would you rate this pay-per-view on 10 if you had to give it a rating?
Ooh, you know what? Given that the first match was really good with Seth and Cody, the main event was really good, and even though I'm not a huge women's wrestling fan, I got to give Rousey and Charlotte credit. That was a hell of a match. 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. I mean, I'm not going to go too crazy and say it was like the best or anything, but it was really good. And I think what helped is sometimes if I have low expectations going in, it kind of can easily beat those expectations. So I have very low expectations, and they killed it. I mean, they beat those expectations. The women's match was great. I saw a lot of people say that was the match of the night. I probably would give it to Seth and Cody just because I like that. But the main event was awesome too. So I mean, you can give the main event the match of the night as well. Really enjoyed the 6-man. Roman is he's in God mode, as they say. But I'd probably 7.5 or 8 out of 10. It was good. I mean, if you're looking for some good matches, can't beat it. 3 really good ones.
Now, for your podcast, you have Taking You to School with Tom Pritchard. You've got Taskmaster Talks, which apparently he doesn't do in video form anymore.
Not lately, no. Yeah.
And then there's Dutch Mantel, yep. University of Dutch. You were involved with the Talking Tough podcast, but I don't know what's the status of that.
I think a little bit of a hiatus. I know Butterbean is actually with DDP, so sometimes he can be on, sometimes he can't, but he's down there with DDP. I know he's hanging out with Buff Bagwell. They're doing, I'm guessing it's some sort of reality show because they're filming whatever they're doing down there with DDP. It's not like an elimination style or anything, but I mean, you could see if you follow Butterbean on social media, he's lost probably, I would say, like 50 pounds. He looks great. I mean, he's in shape. He's eating right. He's being very healthy down there with DDP and Buff. So something is going on down there. And I know Boss has been traveling and doing like karate tournaments and doing all sorts of announcing. And he's been in Holland. He's been hanging out with Gegard Mousasi and Melvin Manhoef. So I know he's busy. And I know Rick is doing like 2 or 3 jobs right now. So I guess it's on hiatus for now, but they could pop in whenever.
But we got to know what's the status of Butterbean's penis, because he put a picture up.
That was gross.
This penis that's split. He showed it on an episode with his cell phone, and I was very concerned because I've never heard of a penis just splitting.
Never.
He didn't. His way of dealing with this is to take an Epsom salt bath, and then we never heard about it again.
We asked him off air. He goes, "Oh yeah, it's fine, no problem." But I'm like, dude, you split your dick. Like, what do you mean it's fine? No problem. Like, holy crap. That was disgusting too. I had to look away. I usually don't get like disgusted easy, but I was like, oh man, that was gruesome. Holy crap. Oh, didn't want to think about it. Like, oh man, it's gruesome. Oh, horrible. But he said he's fine now.
Apparently, for anyone that doesn't follow that podcast, he is a sex addict, but he's faithful now. But apparently, even at his size, at his size, I guess it gets pretty intense.
Yeah. RJ's talking about his peenie, he said.
A long story short, the pay-per-view was in Providence, Rhode Island, where I've been to before for the Rhode Island Comic Con. Very good wrestling town. Lots of pay-per-views there over the years.
Yeah. And they're usually into it. Like, they usually have a lot of like energy. Like, that's why I kind of like Northeast. Of course, they always have good crowds. With Providence, they usually bring it, which is great, because I think that too what brought the level of where I would grade the pay-per-view that brought them up, just because the crowd was really into the main event, really into a bunch of the matches. And
my God, does that town ever have good food?
Really? Nice.
Oh my God. The restaurants there are amazing. But
do you like seafood?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, when I went up there, I want to say God, it was probably last summer. He brought me to, damn it, I don't remember the name of it. It was right on the water too. Awesome restaurant. I had a codfish. Really, really good.
Yeah, I'm a big octopus fan, and all the restaurants have like squid and octopus there. But where can people follow you in your various podcasts? You're now definitely up there in the top interviewers in the world, and you've been credited by the likes of Arn Anderson as being such.
Yes, thank you, Double A. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website, tmptempire.com. And of course, patreon.com/tmptempire. Got a lot of cool interviews coming up, a lot of good stuff, including some pretty rare ones as well. So stay tuned at 2Man Power Trip.
Any news for us from Jesse hanging out with him on the weekend? Did he give you any scoops?
It was funny when I was talking to him. I just asked him the most random question. I was asking about the show Tag Team that was supposed to be him and Roddy Piper doing like a buddy comedy. It's not really a comedy, like a buddy duo show. It was going to be a cop show, but it was all kind of wrestling related. So what happened was in 1990, Jesse came out of retirement and actually wrestled. Him and Piper fought the Orient Express in LA at the sports arena, and they filmed the match, but they also filmed the match for this show Tag Team. And it was a part of the pilot, and it was a part of the first episode. But Jesse really came out of retirement, did the match. He was taking bumps, and the Orient Express were really, having a real match with them. And it was great. So I said, Jesse, what happened to that show? And he was explaining to me that Corelco, which was one of the companies that was putting the show together, teaming up with Disney, but Disney was suing Corelco. Corelco was suing Disney. So they couldn't actually do the show, even though they filmed 2 episodes. They filmed the pilot and another episode, but it was pay or play. If you're not going to pay him to do the series, and it's not going to play on, if you will, you have to pay him. So they paid him for 8 episodes. Actually, I think they paid him for 2 seasons. So I think they actually paid him for 16 episodes. And he never actually did the series. There was just a pilot. You could actually find a few episodes on YouTube if you write in Tag Team, Roddy Piper.
It's worth watching. Any fans out there, it's worth watching. It's excellent.
But they thought it was going to be like the next A-Team. Like, it's not really for adults, not really for kids. It's kind of in the middle, but it definitely could be good for kids. But they're cops, but they beat people up with wrestling maneuvers and stuff. I mean, really, really kind of, you could say corny, cheesy, whatever. I mean, it's 1990, but I don't know. I liked it. I think it's cool. I think it would have been really popular. And obviously with Ventura and Piper, they have huge fan bases. I think it would have been over like Rover. I think it would have been super popular. But we were literally talking about that for a while. And it's funny because I thought I would get like a short answer. Like, I don't remember. It's like, that's such an interesting question. And he goes, I haven't thought about that in so long. And we were just bullshitting about Tag Team and Piper and the Orient Express and stuff. So that was kind of the only thing. He really said he doesn't like to do too many wrestling shows. He's done book signings before, and I think he's done one other wrestling appearance. Really, I think it was for the big event in New York for a couple hours. So he doesn't like to do many stuff, but this was a big show for my buddy Tommy Fierro and 80s Wrestling Con and his wrestling collector store and everything he's got going on. So it was a really big deal. And Jesse, I mean, he knocked out of the park. He was super busy. And I think he had like a 9-stop line for like 3.5 hours. Pretty crazy. I had to wait a while to get to talk to him.
One of these days, I'll hopefully interview him. I know you've done it.
Yes, he was awesome. He was great. And it was funny when I interviewed him, they connected us. Like we didn't have a direct line to him, but they didn't have a direct line. But he had a studio where he was. They said he was off the grid in Mexico. So he was in a studio and they connected to this studio. It was just him and his wife. I mean, his wife's not in the interview, but it's just him and his wife that were there. And there's, I guess, like on vacation or whatever. He just said, I like to be off the grid. I don't have my phone on me. He didn't have anything with him except for he had this studio. And we call into, I guess it was his manager, then his manager patched us into a studio. But man, he's awesome. And at that point, he told us he hadn't even talked wrestling in a while. And he was telling me, just great stories about WWF and stuff. I think it's about a half hour. It should be on the TMPT feed. I believe it's in the archive somewhere in there. But man, he was just awesome to be able to get to talk to him. And it was just really funny. It's like, wow, you're off the grid, but you're doing a wrestling interview. Maybe he was bored. Who the hell knows? But he was great.
And I just got to put up this picture from 80s Wrestling Con of some fans that dressed up like wrestlers, and they did a wonderful job. The guy in the Mankind outfit is actually the producer for the Blood Hunter Thirst and Rage film, and him and his friends actually put these outfits together. So he was pretty proud of that.
And the Dusty guy was on. Did you see that with Cody? He was at the house show in New Jersey where Roman Reigns made that comment, like, I may not see you in a while, probably because he doesn't want to come back to New Jersey. But I'm from Jersey, I live in Jersey, I love Jersey. But hey, I can see where Roman Reigns is coming from. Maybe he doesn't want to come back here. But that guy, that Dusty impersonator, Cody called him in the ring, and he got in the ring with him, and he was talking and stuff. It was pretty damn cool.
We got the Pounding the Meat podcast checking in. They did a pretty good interview with Vince Russo.
Yes, good stuff. Yeah. I love that. Vince is talking to Vince McMahon about coming back, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember hearing about that in the news, but that was the first time I ever saw him talk about it on video. So I thought that was pretty good. But thanks again for giving us the rundown, and I'll let you close this off however you want.
Thank you, everybody, for checking us out. Thank you for supporting Two Man Power Trip, and thank you for supporting Hannibal TV. We'll see you next time, folks. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications.